Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to Full Course Yellow, our weekly get-together. Not the after show, the instead of show for In Pit Lane, while we're on a break over the next couple of, the break is running out really quickly. My God, we're through, we're at the end of June already, so, I know our break is only 8 weeks away. It's starting to loom up before we come back to the screens of Channel 31 Melbourne. The break is looking really condensed at the moment, so, but anyway, we're looking forward to coming back, and looking forward to some local motorsport, particularly here down in Victoria, starting up again very, very soon. We've got some things coming up down at Phillip Island. 6 hour relay races happening soon. We've got the Festival of Speed, the Winton Festival of Speed up there happening in August as well, with a big field of historic sports sedans apparently promised, so we'll be looking forward to that. Got the accommodation, got in early this time, got the accommodation booked really, really, really early to make sure I can get up there and we can cover that. So anyway, let's have a talk about what's happening around the world of local and international motorsport. There's a few things on the plate at the moment, and we'll get onto those in a second. But joining us tonight on the panel, we've got Peter Johnson, we've got Richard Outram, and we also have Stuart Fairweather joining us once again as well. So thanks guys for joining us. And I mean it's sort of a case of where do we start? Let's welcome some of the regulars. First, we've got Mad Cow Mark joining us again. Saw me on Motor Mania's live chat on Tuesday morning. Yes, after I got back from the hospital, some ungodly hour. There was a Motor Mania was streaming drag racing from the United States once again, and yes, I posted on there because they had the same problem that, and Stuart will identify with this absolutely instantly. Somebody somewhere decided to play a song over the PA, and bang went the stream. So, so I commented on, commented on that as well, and it's interesting. The guys from Motor Mania got back to me and sort of said, we have a zero tolerance policy on that, as well as just on this occasion somebody not thinking just pushed a button and did the wrong thing and bang, down went the stream. So you've got to be really careful with that. Speaking of which, we got a whole pile of copyright infringements on the YouTube channel just recently, which I actually fought, and the last of them was released yesterday. So all of the anything that was on the YouTube channel that was taken down because of copyright from all sorts of obscure reasons, and footage that we took ourselves, including the stuff that Stuart and I did up at Darwin last year, or was it last year or the year before? It seems like an eternity now.
It was last year, I think.
It was last year.
Yeah, it was last year up at the top end.
It was about this time last year.
This time, yeah. Well, the top end nationals, I think Mark might actually know. I think top end nationals are either this weekend or next weekend, which is the meeting that we did cover up there last year. So
it was a great meeting, and they're lovely people, and anybody who has the opportunity to go should.
And Matt Abel, who we stayed with up there, did very, very well at the recent door slammer round that was held in conjunction with the triple threat, or whatever they called it, up at Hidden Valley. He did really well in his in his 57 Chev top door slammer. So that was fun, and we'd love to. I think I can speak to. I think I can speak on behalf of Stuart to say we wouldn't mind going back up there again, because 1, we like the weather, 2, we like the people, 3, we like the racing, and 4, we'd both like to see what Darwin actually looks like outside of a racetrack, because we saw nothing.
We saw the racetrack, we saw the local shopping centre, we saw
the J car,
lovely home. The J car that I didn't work for at the time. Yeah,
that's a bit on the local pub.
Didn't actually get. That's right, and the local nightlife.
The local nightlife. And speaking of the local pub and the local nightlife, we were joined at that stage by Rob Taylor, who of course had a very bad recent accident, really bad fire in his top door slammer in the Mad Professor Camaro just recently. So best of luck to Rob. He was very lucky. I mean, it was a very nasty incident with the door slammer, and he's posted some stuff in hospital. He's still with us, but I mean he was suffered a lot of burns. But once again, the safety gear did its job. G'day to Box once again. Jeff McWigan is with us as well. We've also got Russell Clark is joining us. Fellow race nerds. Yes, g'day. G'day to you, Russell. G'day to Tony P. Paul Van den Acker is with us again. Leegi is also with us. Maurice also last went for 2 years. Last year went for 2 years. Yes, you're right there. Definitely, Maurice. That's for sure. Yes, so that's Mark's not sure about this year, but it's pretty close anyway. So top end nationals, don't know if they're streaming it this year or not. I think they were putting out something that there was a local company had put up their hand and said that they were willing to do it. So there might be a stream, but I haven't heard anything official at this stage. And Paul's saying sounds like most of his motorsport trips. Yeah, it is like that. I mean, that's the thing in the end, whether you're an official or a journalist or all that, it sounds all very glamorous. It's like when Melissa was sort of, flittering around the world, as a motoring journalist, and it's like, oh, how glamorous, 1 week in Paris, the next week in London, and then in Portugal, and then over in Japan, and then there. And she said, I see the airport, the car show, the motel, home. That's all, and it gets on top of you in the end. And it would have been lovely to have had some more time, up there to have actually seen. We saw it from a distance. We saw the buildings. Looked over. Oh, there's that's what Darwin looks like. But as far as going into the city itself and having a look at the thing and sampling some of the food and the entertainment, not there. G'day to Tom Allen as well. Hi to Tom as well. Okay, so what do we start with first? Let's get the banners up and running. We won't start with Mr. PK because he's a dreary sort of chap. We will get onto it. Don't worry, we'll get onto it at some stage. But getting a lot of coverage. We've got to talk about who saw Goodwood Festival of Speed on the weekend and the run by the Spearling.
Me.
Yep.
Fabulous.
Holy cow!
What a blur!
It was a blur, and if you want to see, if you want to see how much of a blur it was, I'll just hide something here at the moment.
Yeah,
and
go to Goodwood Festival of Speed. Go to the Goodwood channel.
I've got it. I have it. I have the actual thing right here, right now. There we go. Whoops.
Okay. That is insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Can we just give mad props out to the Goodwood team? Their live streams are normally set the standard for the rest to follow worldwide.
And it's not just the production; it's the way they do. I mean, in terms of us, carrying it on our channel and all the rest of it. They put up the links well in advance. They have the same stream key, the same URL for the entire weekend. So I don't have to go back and change it every 5 minutes when they go from one or the other for different sessions. when they're not live, they've got the loop going for the whole of the week, and they've still got it going. If you go to that link for the live on our site now, they've still got that link going, and it'll be going for about probably until sort of the end of this weekend as well. If you want to sort of relive it all, they do an amazing. Doing a really amazing job, but yes, as Jeff say, what in God's name was that?
Just on the subject of that car, you've got to think about how much faster it could have been if they hadn't compromised the chassis in the way they have. It is so short and so narrow that it's not going to be as fast as it could be. It's just not going to be able to generate the G, the grip, the mechanical grip, not just before the fan's on. Exclude the fan, it would never go around the corners that well. And if you see past runs from past years, it is all over the place. It dives and darts across the bumps worse than a Mini with hydroelastic suspension.
The interesting thing about it as well, when you look at I jumped onto their media mailing list and got some of the specs of it. It's actually, I mean, it could go faster yet again and handle even better because it's actually only a 2-wheel drive car. It's a rear-wheel drive machine. They could easily have hub motors in the front as well to give
hub
it even.
Motors aren't efficient. Hub motors, when you get to that power level, they're not as good as having a central motor.
Yeah, I suppose, but just as a hybrid to get out of. It's for slow. Well, yeah. Well, I mean, Toyota did pretty well with theirs, and for as far as hybrid goes, to give them a huge boost out of the corner. No, because they're not allowed to anymore. They were too good. That was it was the same as the original fan car. Because let's not forget that technology first appeared in 1970. I think it was 1970, might have been 71, but I think it was about 1970. Jim Hall, Chaparral 2J, snowmobile engine driving 2 fans. Was instantly banned. The blades of the fan were decreed a movable aerodynamic device by the FIA, and the car was instantly banned. And then, of course, famously, the concept was revived by Gordon Murray for the Brabham, the Brabham Alfa Romeo, which won its only race with Niki Lauda behind the wheel. And they got around that by saying that the fan wasn't for part of an aerodynamic device.
No.
It was simply for cooling. I mean, it was just, the fact that it sucked the car to the ground was, gosh, I mean, what a beneficial coincidence that is. So,
and which is it? Gordon Murray's sports car.
Yeah, I mean he's revived the concept in a road going car. They're actually talking about building a road going version of that thing as a single seater commuter car sort of. But they're also talking about a one make series.
If you want a single seater commuter car, you want to have a look at something else that was launched in the last few weeks, and that was the new Morgan 3-seat or 3-wheeler.
Yeah,
that looks like an ideal commuter car.
Yeah, there was another one that they saw. There was quite a few at Goodwood. The thing about Goodwood is it's grown so much. I mean, when we went it was just starting to change from being like a motorsport event into being this showcase for the international automotive industry, and it's really growing to extraordinary levels right now. And you've got all these companies jumping on board and showing off their latest cars. It's become the de facto international motor show. It's possibly, at least at the high end of the market, it's probably replaced Geneva, because really now, I mean, we have no Australian motor show. The North American motor show in Detroit is a shadow of its former self. Geneva's the only big sort of general motor show. You got a few specialised things like SEMA and PRI and Tokyo Auto Salon and things like that. But Box was asking the question: does Goodwood run under FIA rules of their own? Yeah, it's basically you can run what you brung to an extent. I think it's basically it's their own.
And it's not just cars that they show off there as well. They'll have aircraft park. They have aircraft demonstrations like they do at the regular or yearly meeting. But also they had the Alauda airspeeder team there a couple of years ago demonstrating unmanned flight for drone racing because they're building a Formula Ford sized pilotable drone for racing. And that's a team out of South Australia.
South Australia.
At Goodwood.
Nothing dangerous there.
Yeah.
Except for the fact that it goes up and down, it's no more dangerous than a Formula Ford.
Yeah.
The interesting thing about the air show Goodwood, the most amazing air display I'd ever seen was at Goodwood. The scariest and most impressive thing, which was a very, very frighteningly low level. Wait for it. No, I don't. Aerobatics display by a South African Airways jumbo jet. It's a 747.
Oh, okay. No.
Holy cow, that was terrifying to watch. Absolutely to watch a jumbo jet at about 1,200 feet over the top of your head suddenly go into a stall turn and fall upside down towards you is the scariest thing I have ever seen in my... I was sure we were going to die there, and I believe that the pilot involved was got a very, very big rap over the knuckles and was told, and they were told never to do again.
All of those aircraft are acrobatic rated. The 707 was sold on the basis that it did 3 barrel rolls, one over the top of a 90-foot mast on a yacht, with the plane 90 feet above that, to the people who are going to be buying the plane. I've heard of a 747 doing 1G rolls across the Pacific Ocean. And the 727 used to be able to push just over the speed of sound. But that's the thing about of Ray Hanna at Goodwood, one on the deck with the Spitfire. That is frightening footage. Literally between the grandstands on the racetrack, with the Spitfire no higher off the ground than a one-story building.
The other thing that was impressive is the
same pilot in the footage with there's an English media commentator who does like documentaries and what have you, and the Spitfire comes out of the grass over his shoulder and he swears like a trucker. It's worth finding. Spitfire,
I think I've seen
low pass, Ray Hanna.
Okay. Yeah, because the other thing that was there, but yeah, they had the Red Arrows were there, but they also had Red Bull had their own aerobatics team that runs former Swedish air fighters. I mean, they were not. We're not talking about Mad Cow saying what no electric scooter. Yes, Mark, there was. Yes, there was. There were electric scooter races at Goodwood as well, and it was very funny to how they were hyping it up. You'd have thought that this was the most exciting and wonderful new thing in history. It's like, it's democratizing motorsport for everybody. It's an exciting new concept, and we have, it's like somebody like me who's a motorcycle, a superbike rider, can get behind the wheel, but my teammate is an Instagram fashion influencer, and she can be a part of it, and it was like, and it's so exciting, and it was awful.
Oh. It's like the old thing doing the knife between the fingers stuff.
It was horrible. But yes, but there were electric scooter races at Goodwood. There's everything at Goodwood. Although they haven't had the best. One of the best things I saw at Goodwood, they used to have the soapbox derby, and you used to see some amazing things float around there, because you had people like Red Bull and Williams, McLaren, Lotus, all of those. A lot of the Formula SAE teams actually design cars to come back down the hill by gravity as like what we'd call billy carts, and there were some amazing things there to see. I looked at them. I went and had a close look at them on the day. The aerodynamics was incredible. So if you're interested, Paul's got there the Spitfire low pass. There's the
The answer to Jeff's question above it is Victor Pugachev.
So who was that mad Russian guy, the Su-27?
Yep, and he performed that, or the Cobra maneuver in the SU-27 at Avalon a couple of decades ago.
Well, the first
Actually,
Avalon.
he got in trouble while he was at refueling, because how they got the jets to Avalon for that second air show, was Avalon paid the fuel bill for the transport aircraft and the fighters that came. So they stopped at Tullamarine to refuel, and he was given permission to take off from Tullamarine, proceed to 5,000 feet, fly to Avalon. So he did so, full afterburners. And then got to V1 and just rotated and put the plane on its tail and climbed straight to 5,000 feet from Tullamarine. He was told, "Thank you, impressive. Please don't do that again."
Never do that again.
Yeah, sorry.
Richard, go ahead.
No, I was going to say at the first Avalon Air Show, they were doing stunts with a giant Antonov, the one which has a 15-ton crane in the back of the fuselage, and they were doing wingovers coming around the grandstand. Well, it wasn't a grandstand; it was actually just a string of party flags to.
I think that was the second one, Richard.
No,
I think that was the second one, because the Antonov turned up with the SU-27. And I know it was the second one because I was in the car crash that caused the delays to get into the first one.
Well, he was doing it, and he had wingtip, must have been 50, not more than 100 feet off the ground. It was incredible.
Do you remember
Scared the crap out of
which airline it was that did a display at the same air show with the 727s? Because that was pretty much up on the tip. The other thing that Pugachev did was there was an F18 display from a US Air Force pilot, and Pugachev just basically copied his routine the next time the SU-27 went up. But we digress.
Yes, it is if it's got engines and and all the rest. Yeah, we'll cover it. But speaking of,
we should be doing live streams from drone racing. That's fast.
Yeah, but let's talk about for the Formula One, some of the things that are coming up. British Grand Prix this weekend. Some people are going to have some major upgrades. Mercedes said that they're going to have some significant upgrades. Now, what's come out of the FIA overnight from the World Council of Motorsport and from Formula One is that they're going to they're making some slight changes to the regulations to make it a bit more flexible in terms of what happens when you replace engines, because I think they're getting very nervous at the moment that there's going to be some of the top contenders are going to get sort of fairly early in the season, and they're basically going to run out of fun tickets. And I think they'd probably hate to see the World Championship decided by penalty points for people who are because they changed engines before a race or before practice. I think now they've got. The rules are going to be that if they change an engine between practice and qualifying, they're not going to. They won't have the same sort of penalties. So anyway, that's there's something else for aeronautical buffs out there. The Canberra Antonov takeoff that nearly didn't get off the ground. Filmed from the control tower with very Aussie commentary. Yeah. I'll be going to have a look at that. Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, that will be fun. So don't go yet, but yeah, we won't keep you long. So anyway,
multitask. I can do it at the same time. I have multiple screens here.
Well, you're lucky. Yes, I'd really like some multiple screens. It's amazing in this day and age. You have a look at some of the setups that you see people like on office hours that Stuart will know about, and you see people say, "Oh, I've got 7 screens here," and it's like, "What on earth would you use 7?" And you go, "Oh, hang on, I know now."
Yep.
But anyway, Pete, what do you think? What do you think of this weekend? I mean, what can we look forward to at Silverstone? Have you got any confidence that Mercedes are going to come back?
They'll probably come back a bit, but not a great deal. I don't think. I don't think they'll be. I think it's possible that Lewis or George might get third again, but I don't think they'll come back in a spectacular fashion.
Yeah, well, they'll certainly have the crowd behind. There'll be no doubt that the crowd will be 100% behind. It'll be a huge crowd. It'll be absolutely insane atmosphere, you would imagine, in the place. But it's hard to see anybody.
That crawler, at least one legend won't be there.
Yes, well, we'll get the I suppose the elephant in the room, which is Nelson Piquet's comments. Now, Nelson has come out and apologised, but he has said that, like what everybody thinks he said is actually not what was said. He said that in Portuguese, he said the literal translation from Portuguese to English sounds a lot worse than the what it was. But either way, it was a racial slur, one way or the other. And I think that's the least of his the least that they could do is tell him that he's at the moment you are persona non grata. In terms of getting into the paddock, and it'd just be a bad look. I mean, if it's like, having said that, or coming out and having been seen to say that stuff, that he now sort of just wanders into and says, sorry about that, sorry for, slurring you like that, and, but, of course, everyone's carrying on about, Lewis is whinging again and all the rest, but he's probably, as he said, he's had a whole lifetime of that crap, and quite rightly, he said enough is enough. So anyway, Nelson's there. Yes, I think Paul is I think you're right there, Naggers. That the Sky TV commentary team will be in their element. Boy, they'll be in. If Lewis and George do well, they will be insufferable. Really, I mean they can be. I mean, nice guys and all the rest of it. I mean, but yeah, they get carried away, don't they?
Yeah. Somewhat partisan,
to say the least.
I think, as has been the case all season, when it's a pure circuit, the porpoising is less than it is on a street circuit. So I think they'll have that going for them.
Yeah, and they said that they're going to. I mean, they were getting on top of it. It was at the last round. Things were better, and it's a nice smooth surface. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see whether they do improve. Interesting that McLaren are saying they're not expecting any sort of major improvements, because they're saying at the moment they're not really, because of the so-called salary cap or the cost cap, that they're not really prepared to make any major investments in upgrades at this stage, because of the cost cap. They don't want to get sort of halfway through and start getting problems if they really, really need at the end of the year to make changes or to make improvements. They don't want to be sort of caught out now, and I think they're prepared to basically just bide their time and live with it. But in theory, I think Silverstone will be a better track once again, just like for Mercedes. Silverstone will be a better track for McLaren than some of the recent circuits, because of that smooth surface, and also because of there's not too many slow corners, and it's a very wide open, sweeping track. So less likely to end up with
back injuries from the poor aerodynamics bouncing the car up and down.
Yeah, well, as we sort of said last week, I mean, that you can understand the FIA and wanting to make some changes to protect the drivers, but at the same time, you've got to. It's as Tim Horner is saying. It's really one team has got it bad. And that's because they're just their car is so much more stiffly sprung than anybody else, and the reason they've had to do that is because if they have the sort of, they have the compromise that sort of both, Red Bull and Ferrari have got, their car doesn't work. That's not Red Bull's fault.
And I think, if it came down to it and George and Lewis were really worried about their safety, all it would take is for them to say, we're not driving the car until you fix it, and they'll soon find a solution, I'll bet you.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I mean, they seemed to do quite well in the pre-season test when they did sort of the initial car came out, when they did that test that wasn't a test, and then they came up with the side pods, with the new side pods afterwards at the Bahrain test, and started having the problems because it's one car. If you have a look at the field, I mean, there's two cars that don't look like the others, and in particular, and that's the Mercedes and the Williams, and neither of them are good cars. But as Box is saying that every Formula One commentary team, the Dutch Formula One telecast who are max mad, they're just mad. The Dutch Formula One commentators are incredibly funny because also they don't have the restrictions, obviously on the language quoted that they have in the rest of the world. It is hilariously funny to listen to the Dutch commentary. It's all over YouTube. I mean, especially things if you think Nelson Piquet said bad things about Lewis Hamilton. Like at the Grand Prix last year at this corresponding race, then listen to the Dutch commentary because it matters. Just once again, Jeff saying that Nelson was also always a SOB. Just ask Alan. Alan Jones had no time for him at all, did he?
No.
There and the only two things that mattered to him in his race days: his boat at Monaco and his Learjet. But then that seems to be a lot of them.
Yep.
But we saw him out here a couple of occasions. Been down out at Calder. It's incredible to think about it. I was thinking about this the other day. If you were out with when we did the interview with Timo Glock, you were out with there, Stuart, weren't you? You were, Hunter. Yeah. We won't go into it now because that's what made me smile. I've had a miserable week.
The other camera people, or what the other camera people said about one of the reporters, or the nice email we got afterwards.
Well, it wasn't just the email; it was the fact that I got into the Toyota garage at Albert Park because of that. It's like, thank God you came. Well, could we please use your footage because we can't use any of that stuff? What is AFL? Who is James Hird? James Hird is what? Mm-hmm. Do you reckon the Bombers will beat the Tigers on Friday night?
Who?
What?
Yes.
If I can talk to you about your time in Formula 3000, thank you so much. Yeah. It was it was a funny one. That there was a whole bunch of media people, and not one of them knew the difference between a wheel and a wing nut.
Whoever was the chief of staff that sent football reporters out to cover a motorsport event.
Well, that was because they did all the time, and the reason they did it, if you remember, that James Hird was there because Toyota was sponsoring the AFL and also sponsoring Essendon. So, and it was the only way you could get anything about the Grand Prix. I mean, Mark Webber, we had this conversation with Mark at Albert, where, he was getting there and he said, every year, he said, I come to Melbourne. He said, I've got to pretend to care about Australia. And he said, I'm a rugby. He said, I grew up in Canberra. He said, Dave Campese was my hero. I love rugby. He said, I quite like rugby league. I have zero interest in Australian rules football. Every time I come to Melbourne, it's like, who are you barracking for in the footy, Mark? He said, I don't care. But anyway, so coming up, not much happening.
I'm just thinking all these stories, Brett, one day, memoirs. You've got to do it.
Yeah, but I might have to wait for some of them for the statute of limitations to die down. But anyway, here we go. We've got, there's, as I said, not a lot happening locally, but there is some stuff coming up. Yeah, super trucks are running up at Winton. Wouldn't have minded being up. The super trucks... they're a guilty pleasure, the super trucks. They're very dirty and very wallow around. They do damage to tracks and all that, but it's a good atmosphere in the place. So they always get a really big crowd up there for the super trucks, along with, as Paul's saying, with the VMRC categories there. Victorian XL series. Are you running it all, Richard, or still too busy?
I'm still busy. Look at this rotten place I'm living in at the moment in Ashburton. I don't even get home, let alone see my car.
Yeah, well, it's Yes, but anyway, that will pay off. I'm
Yeah, it will
assuming
pass.
I'm assuming that there will probably be Blendline or somebody will be live streaming it. I think they've got some deal. I think they've got a deal with Gravity Media or something to do the live streaming from Winton now, because we know from our coverage of Formula SAE up there that the track is actually is fully cabled with fibre. And so it's much easier and much cheaper to do stuff up at Winton than it is to do almost anywhere. And that's that's something that all tracks should really look at if you want to make it if you want to make it easy for people like us to come around and do live streams. Fibre and talk, whether you talk to us or talk to Blendline or talk to 7 or 9 or anybody, and just say, okay, where do you put your cameras? Where do we put the access points? What do you need? It's that simple. It'd be nice if it was. But anyway, yeah, so
Yes,
that'll be...
Having worked for the company that actually runs the trucks, it's really, really nice when you can just roll up an open access point and plug anything in.
Plug everything in. Yep, it saves time.
You don't have to worry about it.
Saves time, and saving time means saving money. And
if you're
lots of
designing
money.
and building a facility and you ring this particular company, they will gladly help you design where it's meant to be installed.
As indeed will we. I mean, it's there. I think you're busy fairly busy at the moment. But I must admit, there was talk about in one of the many talks about new racetracks. There was one of them actually out your way many years ago. The plan to build a sort of what was going to be called Melton Motorsport Park. Which they actually they got me out there and they showed me the plans, and the reason they showed me the plans is they said, okay, what do we need to do to make this easy for you? So they were going to do it, and I went through with them and sort of looked at the line of sight and elevations and all that, just to see where they could run cable. And this was like sort of 15, 16 years ago, but it never got.
So that'd be the one that would have been the corner of Boundary Road and Robinson's Road.
I don't know the exact. It was somewhere
At the
where they were
time, it
running.
would have been in the middle. At the time, it would have been in the middle of nowhere, but now it is entirely factories and warehouses.
Yeah,
It was always going to be factories and warehouses.
Russell is asking, anyone have any info on the shelved motorsport complex for Pakenham? It's still shelved. However, the local council is still actually very keen. The council just recently said that as far as they're concerned, it's not dead. They want it there, but basically they need someone else to come along, one to pay for it, and two to run the thing. But the original
Is that
plan.
That's the one that was only big enough for an 8th mile track, wasn't it?
No, well, the track.
drag,
Well,
Okay,
they were
a quarter mile with no shutdown area.
Yeah, well, they were never going to run. What they said they were going to run quite, drag type race. And when you had a look, Doc managed to get a look at the planning permits there, because he's a local resident in Cardinia, and he went out and had a look and was sending me back the information, and we kept our powder dry because the people behind it, I think they were called Podium Motorsport, I think from memory, they were always going to come in on the show, and I was keeping my powder dry because there was a lot of big questions. For one of the things, if you had a look at the design of the paddock, it said, a paddock area, a paddock and pit area which will provide parking and access for 87 race cars. And it's like, okay, so where do the rest of them go? There's about 200 of them turn up for a state round, so where are they all going to park? There was no place for them. There were only 900 public car parking spaces on offer. And they were saying at the same time, we're going to have rounds of the Australian Supercar Championship. We're also it's going to be a full FIA Level 2 track, because we're going to have rounds of we're planning to have rounds of the Asian Le Mans Series and other international events as well. With 900 car parking spaces? No public transport in or out, one road, one 2-lane, very narrow road that goes straight through the middle of a residential area. Was never going to happen.
I'm thinking 900 spaces is probably just big enough for a local country football pavilion, or maybe a sprint car track. But places like Avalon and Warrnambool definitely have a lot more spots than that.
Yeah, I mean, if you have there was all sorts of strange things seemed to be going on there, and the original plan was for the car club. The problem was, I mean, the Pakenham Auto Club got sort of pushed aside to have this thing, and they were promised sort of you're going to get another area to replace that place, because they were actually running events there. They were running motorcarnas and sprints and all that on the dirt there in between the high tension tower lines. We covered a few motorcarnas and things out there over the years, and yeah, but it was very narrow. Remarkably, it would have been perfect for a drag strip if it was just a drag strip. If it was a drag strip and nothing else, like Heathcote Park, would have been perfect, except for the fact that less than 1.5 kilometres up the road are residential houses, and including a retirement village and a primary school and a childcare centre and a shopping centre, and you can imagine Saturday afternoon in the local shopping centre when a couple of top fuelers decide to head off down. Yes, I'll have 400 grams of minced pork. What the hell? Hit the deck!
Mummy, my eyes are stinging.
Yes. Mummy, I smell bubble gum. Oh, my eyes!
Yeah, there's just nothing like the smell of race fuel.
Yeah, as Avalon has a crowd size of around 8,000 spectators. They were talking about in some of these, in some of the planning, in the planning permit, they were talking about crowds of 62,000, not just for motorsport events. They were also talking about having major international music acts and music festivals there as well. You can imagine, it's imagine okay, hello, Mr. Joel, you can play at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, or we've got this great venue out at Pakenham.
Yeah, where?
Yeah,
if a motorsport facility was going to host a rock concert, the only one in the Melbourne area that would is Calder Park.
And we know what happened.
Because Guns N' Roses played there once, so everybody will want to play there.
And we know what happened that day. I think it took years for the legal action to stop in many there, but Bob almost literally made a killing out of that, because turning off all the taps and saying, "You want water? It's $8 a bottle." Yeah, that was cruel. Mm-hmm. That was, Jeff saying many country towns would love to have a pro drag strip in Victoria. I don't think they would.
Country towns in Victoria have main drags that are wide enough to run like top fuels around.
The thing is, we're very lucky to have one now with Heathcote Park, because, as we said before, they're doing an extraordinary job out there of doing that. And it looks at this stage, if that, in terms of, it's going to remain probably we really desperately need something close to Melbourne, but at this stage I don't think we're going to see it unless we see the development of that multi-purpose motorsport complex that the government are talking about with Motorsport Australia. The plan is the government have invested money, the state government have invested money, I think it's $7 million, to do a feasibility study to look for potential sites where they could build a dedicated circuit plus other tracks. And I would hope that Motorsport Australia would not be sort of myopic enough to sit there and say yes, we're going to have this fabulous circuit, but we don't want a drag strip or a speedway. Why would we want a speedway? It needs to, that was the problem with the whole Motivate Melbourne thing. Because and now that he's, I suppose we can say this now that he's quit politics as of last week or the week before. James Molino, I spoke to me at a thing at Parliament House at one stage, and basically said, "Look, put out the word to these car racing people. We are not we are far from it." He said, "But what we want is one proposal that makes sense for everybody. He said, all we're getting, he said, is 101 proposals from 101 different people, all backbiting each other, all stabbing each other in the back, telling us why this won't work and that won't work. He said, we might help build one venue. He said, we're not building one for drags, one for speedway, one for circuit racing, one for motocross, one for jet boat racing, one for whatever.
Hang on. See, the problem there is these people would need to talk to each other. They would need to communicate. Right? And this has been the problem with motorsport in Australia for how long? 20, 30, 40 years?
Well, all the time.
Forever.
Forever, yeah. I mean,
it all goes back to CAMS versus AASA and whatever. They don't talk to each other.
And before that, I mean, you had so many things. I remember the late Peter Werrett used to write about it. He had a really good column before he was famous for talk on the ABC. Peter Werrett used to have a regular column in Racing Car News, and he used to write about it quite regularly. There was also a guy called Jim Sullivan, who used to have a column as well, and he would write almost every month about, like what the hell is, and this is in the 1960s, what the hell is going, why won't these people talk to each other, why won't everybody pull together in the same direction, because the sport is, and we're seeing what's happening now because of drag racing. I mean, now the drag racing is sort of getting back together with the Australian Top Fuel Championship. As we said last week, that meeting at Darwin, that Top Fuel was presented as well as anything I've ever seen anywhere in the world. Paul saying about the Fiskville proposal south of Milan. Yeah, I think I think it was a CFA training site there, wasn't it, Paul? That they were talking. I know that there was. I think the problem with it was only slightly less contaminated than Chernobyl. I think that was sort of the main thing they were talking about.
So what you're saying is it's safer than the Thunderdome?
The Thunderdome, yes. Yeah, that's probably the case as well. Yeah. So anyway, that's interesting. That's interesting. We must say congratulate. We talked about last week the Porsche 963. We didn't know it was called that at this stage. The new Le Mans outright contender from Porsche. The good news is Australia's own Matthew Campbell, the young Queensland driver, has been announced as one of the factory drivers for that particular campaign. Extraordinary when you consider the way he came up. It was very much, through the whole Porsche sort of pyramid of motorsport. Started off in state racing, went through GT3 Challenge, through Carrera Cup Australia, Carrera Cup in France, and just has worked his way through that whole ladder, and has now got to the stage where he's as of next year he will be possibly a contender for an outright victory at Le Mans. So fabulous. And the car look, there's been a bit of criticism of the car's looks. I think it looks pretty good, but but it's going to be huge. I mean, when you look at it, I mean, you've got, and now we've also got announced this week, or once again at Goodwood, is you have two privateer teams. You have Jota in Europe, which are going to run a car in the World Endurance Championship.
What is the spelling of that?
Jota.
Then it's pronounced Yota.
Well, it might be, but everyone calls it Jota. I think
it's what the J stands for on the back of the Lamborghini.
Yeah, but I think if you talk to you'll be able to find out for sure, because there's an interview with the head of the team, and I think he calls it Jota, because I think it's one of those things where it stands for John, Oliver, Tom.
Then it's
whatever.
Not Italian.
Oh, it's not Italian. No, they're a Brit. No, they're not. But anyway, yes. So
if they're British, it could stand for just about anything.
In every way, shape, or form. But yeah, great car. I must admit, it was fabulous. There was some great racing on the weekend. I was, as some of you would know, I spent a very very long night in hospital on Sunday night, and it was I was as I was sort of waiting there to see if I was going to live or die. I at least had for the 5.5 hours that I was waiting to get someone to actually look at me. I at least had the benefit of being able to lie in this very uncomfortable hospital bed and listen to the Watkins Glen 6 Hour on IMSA.tv through Radio Show Limited and Radio Le Mans. So that passed the time. That helped pass the time considerably and take my mind off things. So we live in wonderful times in terms of technology. And coming up this weekend from Monza, is the European Le Mans Series. I think I've got down somewhere, I think it's something like about 47 cars entered for that event, the 4 hours of Monza. And that's sort of the warm-up act to the following week, the 6 hours of Monza, which will be the round of the World Endurance Championship. And I'm sure we'll talk about more about that next week. Is the debut of the Peugeots. The Peugeots, the wingless or so-called wingless Peugeots are going to make their debut at Monza. And probably a good place for them to debut as well. I mean, because they, in theory, if nothing else, they should be very fast in a straight line. Here we have, so this is why Dave's not with us, wiped out by COVID-19. So get well soon, Dave. There's
probably an obvious joke we could
with
that third sentence, I should say there. But I'll leave it alone just because, you don't pick on
we shall, and Dave's saying, well, medical results just like Le Mans Hypercar, black, white, and red. Yes, that's the thing. I mean, I would please somebody. Thankfully, I think the Peugeots when we saw them was sort of a greeny silver or something. But please, can somebody make a sports car that isn't red, white, and black? I must admit. Obviously, they're our colours on in pit lane as well. They're our little logo colours, and they do work well together. But it really would be nice to see some blue cars and some yellow cars, and perhaps even some green, perhaps a purple car or something. Just something that wasn't red, white, and black. The Toyotas are red, white, and black. Now the Porsches are red, white, and black, and Glickenhaus is mostly red and white, but there's a bit of black on it as well. But yeah, just give us a break from that scheme. So anyway, Dave, get well soon. Also, we don't have Doc this week. I haven't heard from Doc. Not sure where he's disappeared to, but we will just mention in terms of MotoGP that Marc Marquez is he will not give it away. He's had a fourth operation, yet another operation, and he, like me, has been waiting on medical and results of medical tests to see if he can see what's happening, in terms of when he will come back. But he's saying he will definitely be back. He has no intentions of retiring. He will come back as soon as he has the opportunity of getting back behind the handlebars and racing again. So. So that will be. He's still a very good rider, but you'd have to wonder. It's a bit like the drunken prize fighter syndrome. It's oh, Mark, don't, please, not again.
Actually, speaking of motorbike riders, Wayne Rainey put in an appearance at Goodwood as well.
Yes, didn't he? I mean, and there were a couple of things like that. I'd be interested to get Pete's thought. Pete, did you see there was Wayne Rainey riding his bike again with the hand controls and all that, but I thought that was fabulous, and what a sight it was to see Wayne Rainey, Mick Doohan, I think it was Kevin Swans was there, Kenny Roberts. There was a whole bunch of them that were there. Who came up the people who raced against him in the day on the bikes that they rode in the day. Basically, like going with him up the hill as he was riding up on the modified version of his original race bike, and that was fabulous stuff. But the really impressive one was Sam Schmidt, the IndyCar driver, who is paralysed from the neck down, and not only drove up the hill in a specially modified car, he accelerated and braked by blowing into a tube,
I have heard of that.
Wow.
Yeah, and the steering was done by sensors in his helmet, and he looked. And if you have a look at he
How
took
cool is that?
he took proper racing lines.
Yeah, I saw that.
He was going flat. I mean, you would never have known unless you were told that this guy is sitting there strapped in. He was, look, no hands. He was literally just, sucking, blowing. He had someone alongside of him who could take over in the case of an emergency. But as far as we're aware, anyway, there could have been a bit of, smoke and mirrors stuff. I'm not sure, but either way, it seemed to be that the technology has got to the stage now. That's what they were using. That he was sitting there and he was looking at where he was going, and his head was moving, and that was what was steering the car up the hill. And he went really, really quickly. It was amazing technology.
It was incredible.
And once again, that's what Goodwood does. Peter, because you work in that sector and all the rest of it. What options? I mean, have you ever thought of getting a license or something?
I have, but my fine motor skills are affected, so we're not too sure. If Mrs. Max Cat ran out on the road, who would win?
I think a lot of us have fine.
I just want to know what sort of license the cat would have to be out on the road with. And what would a cat drive?
A Jaguar. What else?
Oh yeah, very good, Brett.
Well, Dave's not here. Somebody's got to,
Yeah, but there are for people who have spinal cord injuries, and that's basically just a spinal cord injury with no other effects. They have hand controls that connect to the foot pedals, and they generally. Sorry, that's what
I agree with Dave there. Totally agree with Dave. Mr. Van Der.
And they the cars all have automatic transmissions.
Yeah, and we've seen it a lot. I mean, there's been quite a few drivers, sort of, disabled drivers. I mean, we saw like a couple of years ago at Le Mans in the Garage 56 entry, we had like a team of disabled drivers who were driving and did very well. I mean, they were they finished the race, and they were not desperately compared, but they weren't sort of so slow as to get in everybody's road. They were up and about in the sort of towards the back of the LMP2 field, but they were still there, and they were still going bloody quickly, and probably would go round Le Mans far quicker and far safer than I ever would. So so anyway. Okay, before we go, Pete McKinnon is saying, can we give an overview of what events are happening every week? Yeah, we used to do that. It was so much hard to get all of this stuff together. I will say the Motorsport Australia calendar, they've got like a whole new calendar which you can subscribe to on iCal and all the rest of it. At least in the one that I've got, it does not work. It does. I'm subscribed to it, and if you go to the site and look, you can see what's coming up each weekend. But if you subscribe to it through either Google Calendar or iCal, nothing shows up. That's on the state level. On the national level, it works fine. I mean, if I go to my calendar, my national calendar now, it will tell me like all sorts of things like coming up. Although once again, nothing from nothing locally. The Victorian, if I click on the Victorian state calendar, I've got absolutely nothing at all. State motorsport calendar, Victorian, nothing at all. National motorsport, there, I'll turn that on, and there we go. So we've got, according to this, we've got a quiet weekend locally, according to this, because Townsville is next weekend in terms of national series stuff. So apart from winter, there's not a lot happening this week. On having looked at the calendar, everything is on every weekend, everywhere for everyone. Yeah, simple. It's pretty much you go somewhere. There's this. I mean, there's also. I don't live far from Sandown. I do a lot of shopping at Springvale, and every time I go over on a Saturday or Sunday, you'll hear a racing engine somewhere running around running
At
around
least for
there.
now.
Yeah, well, how could we forget? Zanardi, Alex Zanardi. I mean, sort of, and he was competitive with that. We saw him and talked to him at Macau when he was running with the Works BMW, and he was running on. He was running on merit. I mean, it wasn't, it might have been a bit of a publicity thing, but the fact was he was up, I think, that race at Macau, I think he started from 4th on the grid. And a lovely guy. Unfortunately, he had that accident again recently, fairly recently, about a year or so ago, while he was training to win another Olympic medal. Yeah, I mean the guy is absolute, like an absolute legend. And not only did he come back and race the car again, but he got into cycling, to hand cycling, won Olympic record, won Olympic gold medals at his age. Like if he was a kid, But Dave talking about, Super Trucks are on the 9th and 10th of July, so that's the next weekend. And yes, entries for round 4 of the state race series. That would be at Sandown. The hot dog round open Tuesday. Garage sold out within 20 minutes, over 100 entries in the first 2 days. That's fantastic because they the last round was a bit quiet. So hopefully if the health holds out, I might be able to get down there and sort of at least wander around and have a look. Probably won't be filming out there because Blendline will be doing the live stream and all the rest. We're sort of persona non grata with the state round and from that respect. But we will. But yes, I wouldn't mind going out and having a bit of a look and seeing what's out there and perhaps doing something, whatever we're allowed to do or feel like doing. We'll do that. Want to do some live stuff too. I've got an idea for something live on this particular time slot sometime in the next few weeks, because just down the road from me of a Thursday night, about less than 5 minutes away down the Belgrave Hallam Road on Thursday nights is it's championship slot car racing night on Thursday nights. And I thought, well, go down and do.
Need much smaller camera operators, though.
We can get them. I've got connections. I was in pro wrestling. Remember, we got lots of little people in pro wrestling.
We've got munchkins. We always need munchkins.
They don't like being called munchkins. They'll put up with little people. They will not be called munchkins, and I will not have it that way. Okay. Billy Munger. Billy Munger won at Pau. That's another one. Billy lost both his legs in that very, very bad Formula 4 crash, and then he came back around a year later and actually won the Pau Street Grand Prix in a modified car. But Billy's doing a lot of commentary now with Sky. If you'll listen to him, he does some of the Formula 2. Does some of the Formula 2 and Formula 3 coverage. He's done some sports car stuff. He's done some stuff with Radio Le Mans, I think. Yes, point taken, Dave. But trust me, I do have friends from the world of pro wrestling who are very, very, who are little and are very proud to call themselves little people. But I mean, they are pro wrestlers, and despite the fact that they're 4'2", they could do an awful lot of damage to you. They could do horrible things to you if they really wanted. To. And I've seen them. Trust me, down the Stamford, Saturday night at the Stamford when they get going, if you get a few drinks into them after a wrestling card somewhere, it can get interesting when someone gets a bit mouthy. Yeah, nasty things happen to people.
Never in their presence. Never in their presence.
Oh, I wouldn't. But no, there's enough idiots down there who get drunk and go, a little, let me out.
I'm just wondering whether I could put a first-person view camera from drone racing on a slot car.
You
Because
could
otherwise the cable is way too difficult to manage.
Yeah, well, we have covered. I mean, if you remember, like, you know, we did a big story on we did slot car racing, not live, but we did slot car racing, including the slot car. If you remember, we did jet dragsters. They had slot car jet dragsters that were actually powered by model rocket, which I believe are now banned. But
For the slot cars, yes, but you can still get radio-controlled dragsters. They run over a 300-foot track.
Oh yeah, but in terms of we did a story there out at Sandown. There was a guy from Sydney who had I think it was a 1/12 scale jet dragster, and it had a proper like a jet turbine engine with the afterburner. You made a modified afterburner so it could do the burner pops. That was fantastic to look at. So that was really that was really good. And Rick Kelly went for tried for a speed record with a. He built I think it was a jet powered thing as well, but
no, it was electric.
Oh, it was electric, was it? But we saw just recently at Le Mans. I mean, Nick Tandy run about 180 kilometres an hour or something with a modified Corvette bodied radio controlled car, just blindingly quick. Hey, anyway, we better get out of here, people. Yes, Mark, inspirational kid. Billy Munger, yes, did an amazing job and is doing a great job on commentary as well. I think he's turned into a very good commentator. But yeah, to come back and win at Poe like that was just there's Paul saying the drone.
Yeah, they're kind of low tech for that sort of field.
Yeah. Yep. Okay, everybody. I think that's there. Thank you, Rusty. Interesting, wide subjects covered. Yeah, look, I mean, yeah, we got to fill up with something. We haven't been able to catch up for a while. So so we talked about all sorts of things. Just be thankful that Doc isn't here as well, because otherwise we would have managed to introduce cricket and football into it as well. So
we would have rambled even further.
We would have rambled even further. So let's put an end to the rambling. Thank you once again for joining us. We really do appreciate it. As I said, in Pit Lane, coming back in September, hopefully on back at our original time slot of Thursday night. I see in the current the current program grid on 31 for the season we're missing at the moment. They have now moved the other motorsport shows into the Thursday night, so I think in preparation for us to come back. So yeah. Okay, everybody, let's say we'll say good night, and we'll see you next week for another edition of Full Course Yellow. Until then, from all of us to all of you, thanks for joining us, and bye for now.